Well, then we're going to welcome everyone to our eighth and last session of our study on Humanae Vitae. And we're delighted to have you join us today. And we're going to start with a prayer, and then we'll go around and do a brief, I guess, introduction from last time with our great panelists. So let's start in the name of the Father, Son, Holy Spirit, amen. And we're going to ask the Blessed Mother to really intercede for us today, and for all of us during this webinar, that our words are guided and directed by the Holy Spirit, and that we're able to really have an understanding heart for any questions that we have, and really convey both our love for the Lord through Humanae Vitae, and also sensitivity and understanding for people's concerns and questions. So we ask this in our Lord's name, in the name of the Father, Son, Holy Spirit, amen. Okay, so I'll start off just to say Katie Smith is not joining us today, but instead we have Kelsey here, and maybe Kelsey, you want to just say hi and introduce yourself.
Yeah, so my name is Kelsey Gunkel. I am the social media manager for Endow. So all of the Instagram, Facebook things, I've probably interacted with a few people that are watching. So that's been me behind the scenes, and I'll be taking over for the Q&A. So I'll be off screen, but I'll be answering all the questions. So happy to be here.
Thank you. And Sister Mary Gretchen?
I'm Sister Mary Gretchen. I'm a religious sister of Mercy of Alma, Michigan. I'm currently here in Alma, Michigan at our clinic at Sacred Heart Mercy Healthcare Center. And I work as an internist. So I practice internal medicine for the sisters and treat mostly people in the local community, surrounding community. So I dabble a little bit in femme. I'm just being trained in that right now. So some fertility awareness method training there. And then the rest of my practice is mostly older adults. So that's mostly what I do.
Thank you. Leah Jacobson?
Yeah, hi, I'm Leah. I'm in central Minnesota. I'm the wife and a mom to 7 kids. I'm also the CEO and the founder of the Guiding Star Project, and we focus on opening up women's healthcare centers around the country that just really value the dignity and the beauty of women's natural bodies and functions. So I'm also a lactation consultant, so I work with breastfeeding moms too.
Oh, cool. And we have Deacon Luke with us today.
Deacon Luke Doyle, great to be with everybody again. I was not with you last week. I heard last week was the best discussion because of that. I was driving back to the seminary in St. Louis and was in the middle of nowhere, Missouri, and couldn't get connected to the meeting. So it's great to be back with you. I am a transitional deacon for the Archdiocese of Kansas City in Kansas. That means that I'm a deacon now, but I will be ordained a priest, God willing, in May of next year. I am the masculine genius on this panel, and I am with us this morning from Kenrick London Seminary in St. Louis. I am in my seminary dorm room, so it's not very big. So this is my closet over here, and if my mom's watching, I want her to see that everything is folded and put away and it's all clean. So Deacon Luke, great to be with you.
Great. Well, thank you. We're glad you're here. So I'm Katie Zelenis. I'm the executive director for Coupley. So we teach naturally planning symptothermal method, and we've been doing it for 50 years. And so we're just about to celebrate our Jubilee year. So we're super excited about all the new things happening. So with that, Kelsey, I guess you can go to your question and answer arena, and we can kick this off. So for the first half hour, we usually have just kind of a general panel discussion, and the last we have question and answers. So Kelsey will be answering behind the scenes, and then we'll have people join us online, not camera, but at least audio, so we can talk to people about questions. So with that, this section is talking about the call, the vocation to share the good news of Humanae Vitae. So it has different sections for scientists, Christian couples, family apostolate, doctors and nurses, priests, and bishops. And so I'm just interested in kind of what hit you from this section, and what made sense to you with what you do, both in your work and personally.
I can kind of kick this one off because this section really resonated with me with the work that we're doing at Guiding Star. A couple things. First of all, the family apostolate, really the call to Christian couples to live this reality in their married life, the living of the sacrament in accordance with God's natural order and the beauty of our, our procreative functions. Like that piece, of course, personally struck a chord with me, that just in my everyday life and in my marriage, that we're called to be a light for society, which is a good reminder. But really, as it came into the section to doctors and nurses and those involved in healthcare, that really just kind of weighed heavily upon me, because I feel like a lot of the healthcare industry has not only just ignored this sort of teaching from Humanae Vitae, but they've outright rejected it and worked against it. Created an alternative worldview of what is healthy and good for women. And so where it talks about, we need to strive to win agreement and support for policies among professional colleagues. I have so much hope and prayer for the future as I begin to see, organizations like FEM and Christian, that are training and couple to couple league, that are really working in facts to train our doctors and our medical professionals to find that common language, that common rhetoric, to really question the healthcare narrative and say, look, we deserve better as women. This isn't healthcare. And guided by the brilliance and the beauty and the theology of Humanae Vitae, they can understand that not only is this not healthy for us, physically, but just spiritually, it's robbing us of our salvation, by promoting health care that's in contradiction to our natural order and our biological reality. And so, to me, this is just so important in this section to doctors and nurses to recognize that healthcare is the vehicle that we can use to bring Humanae Vitae to the masses. Like here as a vehicle, it's a tool for us to teach the truth about beautiful creation of our body. So that struck me.
Got it. Anything else?
I can go next if you want.
Okay.
Obviously what probably resonated with me was his call to the priests. Not being a priest yet, but God willing, becoming a priest very soon. That was like, okay, hello, let's talk to me about Paul VI. And there were two things that really resonated in my heart when I read this. The first one is when he says, "It is your principal duty to spell out clearly and completely the church's teaching on marriage." So that principal duty, as in like it shouldn't fall 7th, 8th, or 9th in priorities in ministry, but that is a prime responsibility of the pastors of the church, is to speak clearly, distinctly, without equivocating on the church's teaching on who man is, what he is made for, specifically within marriage. And then there was a special call from the Holy Father after that, a couple lines later, where he speaks of the need for the shepherds of the church to speak this clearly in one voice. And the two things that really resonated with me in that were, one, the absolute necessity of the shepherds of the church doing that, and knowing that as we look back in the last decades of church history, especially in the West, that didn't really happen. There were not bishops, cardinals, priests, transitional deacons that were speaking clearly and distinctly in unison the consistent teaching of the church. And so I think a lot of people watching this probably deserve an apology from a representative of the church and an ordained minister of the gospel that the church did not do that well. But this is also, I think, an invitation to pray for your future shepherds and to encourage your future shepherds and your current shepherds to teach what the church has always taught. This is not revolutionary stuff. This is consistent with what the gospel says, what the saints have taught all throughout the ages. So those are the things that really resonated with me, is that this is a prime responsibility of preachers of the gospel, and that we have to work to make sure that we're all doing this together. Unfortunately, in our world today, there are we see this a lot currently in the United States, politicians who will claim to be Catholic and then will adopt a position that is completely the antithesis of the gospel and what the church teaches. And it's kind of like, well, you can't have both. Either you're faithful to this or you're not faithful to this. but you can't say you're this and then basically smear it and turn a blind eye to it. And so that's true for shepherds, that's true for everybody, but especially for our priests. So to pray for unity in the priesthood, and then for the grace for our priests to speak courageously and with one voice to our culture.
Yeah, I think very often we think of applying forgiveness, to lay people, but it's to everyone, right? So like you said, if the hierarchy, it didn't come across properly, like there's still an ability to give forgiveness to each other, right? All levels, so that we can do a better job. Sister, did you have some ideas I'm just curious with medical, I mean, I feel like you would feel that this was a call to you also.
For sure. I think that what struck me, even in my own desire to start becoming trained in the fertility awareness method, is this call to medical personnel to be educated. And I think a lot of Catholic physicians, not even just physicians in general, but a lot of Catholic physicians, first of all, aren't educated in Humanae Vitae, but then even just to be educated then in these methods. And I mean, I even remember some of my own physician teachers in residency. It's true what Leah was saying, so much of the medical world, not only do they not pay attention, they really negatively look upon things like this. And then even one of my own teachers was saying things like, oh, that's just so simple. Like, I mean, that can be simply learned and simply taught. But it's not always so simple. And I think physicians do need to be officially trained because, and it says in here that persons should be able to come to physicians to seek wise counsel and sound directives that they have a right to expect. And if you have a woman who maybe doesn't have a perfect cycle or doesn't have things that are, so clear, and even if they are so clear, like if the physician isn't trained, she has a right to expect that, especially from a Catholic physician. And if we're not comfortable with it, and if we're not educated in it, as a Catholic physician, we're not doing our duty, and we do have a moral obligation to learn something. So it's a call above and beyond like our traditional medical training, that I think the church is calling us to be trained in ways. And in our community, I love to see, like, we have sisters, we have some in family practice, some in internal medicine. We have some that are trained in the Creighton model, some that are looking to be trained in the Marquette, and now I'm looking at FEM, and like we're taking different methods, which I think is also fabulous because they each have their own specialty or their own strength, and together, working together, I think all of these different methods can really strengthen what the church has to offer in this realm. So yeah, I think it's a real challenge and a call to Catholic physicians. So
it's taking a long time to come to fruition. I get 50
yes.
years, right?
Sure.
For Couple to Couple League, actually our apostolate was founded on paragraph 26, which is, it says, the Pope asks married couples to themselves, by leadership they offer, will become apostles to other married couples. So that's couple to couple. So we teach symptothermal method couple to couple, which is kind of great and unique because in the marketplace, there's not a lot of men that are involved in some of the other methods. They really focus on the women. So we love that we've always included men. So that's been a blessing. So for us, obviously this is our genesis and something we're celebrating 50 years. And I think when I think Deacon Luke, you were saying, or no, Sister, you were saying things are not that simple. And it's not that simple. The people that work in this ministry, it's all about the details. It's all about how do you get that? And things like we have just opened up a clergy portal. And what is that? That is just someplace that, clergy can log in and they can have an area that, like, we specifically are sitting there and waiting for their service requests because, clergy have 1,000 things to do, you know what I mean? And they, when they're faced with this, sometimes it's like, well, how do I get a class? And where do I find a Marquette instructor? What do I do? And simply because they just don't have time, like you're saying, sister, it's above and beyond, right? They're, this is their vocation, but it's hard to know all the details. So we have this portal for that. We also have, I think it also functions as a place where you get a hard question, and then you can ask a fellow clergy, the answer to that question. So those are, those are kind of the things that hit me, that this is a call, and then our vocation comes from this call, and then it's all in the details. So we're just spending all our time trying to figure out all the logistics for everybody, but it's a great joy. So anyway, were there other things that hit you guys when you were reading it?
One, I was reading this, okay, like for me selfishly, but also for the masculine genius who is present with us. And I think just a shout out to husbands and fathers, that you are irreplaceable in the well-being and the daily living of a family. And it's one thing, I know a lot of couples, a lot of families where the wife and the mother is really the one who is pushing the faith, who is trying to help the family stay faithful. And that's great and that's beautiful, and wives and moms should do that. But a word of encouragement to all the men out there, that the order that God has breathed into creation, it comes through man, it comes through Adam, and it comes through husbands and fathers in the family. And I think families can change on a dime, marriages can change on a dime when the man is also willing to step up, to take ownership, and to buy in. And so as those who have been entrusted with the spiritual care of marriages and the spiritual care of families, it's honestly, it's probably more the responsibility of the male than it is the female. Not to say it's not the responsibility of the female, but I think it is primarily the responsibility of the male to lead in this area. And I think that's something that the Holy Father doesn't come out and explicitly say, but I think he hints at it in a couple of places. So really just a word of encouragement, and a shout out to the men who are here, one, who are doing this, but then two, to all the women out there, to invite your husband into this. Pray for him, for his openness, his receptivity, maybe his willingness to entertain stepping up and leading more in this area. I don't mean this dismissively at all, but a lot of young priests have encouraged the men who are becoming priests, really when they get into parishes, to focus on winning over the men, because they've said, like, if you win over the women, you get the women, but if you win over the men, you get the women and the children with them. And so I think that is of tremendous importance, that we name that as well.
Actually, I want to build on that for just a second, because that is incredibly powerful. And what you mentioned about couple to couple league, having both the men and the women involved right from the very beginning, I think is something to be noted, a cautionary tale for us as we move forward, with women's healthcare. And as we're talking about women all the time, you're absolutely right, Deacon Luke, like God ordained this, the graces flow down, through the Father, through the family. And just, really quickly, my husband is a convert to Catholicism. He converted prior to us getting married, but he didn't grow up in a Catholic home. He didn't grow up with a Catholic dad, doing those things. So he didn't know. And so a lot of our marriage, at different points where we realized there was a friction or something we were struggling with, it was simple things like a spiritual director advising that, your husband needs to bless the children with holy water each night before bed. Never dawned upon him because he had never had that experience growing up, but the importance of a Catholic father, really embracing that role and understanding the self-sacrifice, that laying down of one's life, that is absolutely just the entire heart, in a way of Humanae Vitae, of being willing to look at the good of the other at all times. If we have men in our culture doing that, it corrects a lot. It corrects a lot. Yeah. I love that you said that.
If I can add on to that one more step, that Fulton Sheen calls men and women to a high level of moral living and a desire for holiness. But Fulton Sheen says that men will rise to the level at which women call them to. And so when we look left and we look right and we say, well, there are no good men, I think a fair question to ask, if I can push that button, a fair question
I agree.
Is,
I agree.
why are there no good men? Because men will have to respond to wherever the bar is. And so if they're hard to find in your world, raise that bar, and you'll find people who step up.
Yeah, I think culturally, I mean, that's what I'm convinced of this culturally, you know, what the women's movement did through the sexual revolution of this, of, you know, the 60s and the 70s, it did not raise the bar for men, it lowered the bar for women. It lowered us to a lower moral standard and said, well, anything men can do, we can do too. Instead of saying, no, we can remain autonomous in our female bodies and in our female dignity, and we expect men to elevate themselves to match that. And so we have a big cultural correction happening right now as women are awakened and rediscover their own dignity and demand the type of healthcare they deserve, the type of relationships they deserve, and the type of men they deserve.
Right. But it can be secular. It can be if you know, women feel disrespected, right? Because men don't know. You know, it's kind of self-feeding, unfortunately. You know, we had Kelsey was talking to us earlier about the millennial generation. Wow, you know, they lack a lot of good models in some cases. So it's unfortunate. You know, each of us is able to support, you know, the whole vision actually and the culture of Humanae Vitae and the good news of it. As someone married to a man with 6 brothers and no women, I can tell you that, you know, we need to help each other to gain awareness and understanding and compassion for each other, because it's like you said, it doesn't always come naturally. So that's how we can each help each other spiritually to move ahead. So, well, that's great. So I don't know if there are any other points. I think the only other thing that kind of came to me was our vocation. You know, this has been a beautiful series on Humanae Vitae. It's been a real joy for me. There's such beautiful words to reflect on them again with everyone, and learn so much from all our panelists. So thank you. But you know, so for us at Couple to Couple, we're redoing our 50th year. So we're looking at everyone's commitment to Humanae Vitae. And I guess, you know, just like you were saying, it's a million different ways we can help each other, right? So are you going to teach? Are you going to donate? Are you going to go help? Are you going to attend a webinar like this? Are you going to tell somebody else about it? So there's a lot of really great things. I can share with you, one of the happy things I heard was FACTS, which helps doctors learn about fertility awareness through science. You know, they now have for the pre-med students an elective course, so you can actually take it as one of your electives, which is great. So we are making progress, and there's lots of ways to help out. But I guess we're asking everyone. I would ask everyone here, and maybe you have other suggestions for how to get involved. But really, it's a good time for us to look at the culture and go, hey, you know, even if I can do one thing, what could I do? Can I pass out brochures? Can I show up at a mother-daughter luncheon? What can I do? You know, how can I help? So that's what we're asking for our group for this year. Just wondering if you guys had other thoughts on that.
I always have thoughts on things people can do. I'm always like, just live your life out loud. First of all, you know, live your faith in the public sphere. Like, yes, the beauty of what happens in your home in secret is God sees everything, but sometimes we need to tell people what's happening. Sometimes it's as simple as saying, you know, oh, we practice NFP, and not being able to speak about that without fear is an incredible witness. And there is that specific in here, you know, witnesses to this light, to this culture. We have such a tremendous opportunity right now. Everybody can become a YouTube star, literally. Anybody can become a celebrity in their local sphere, literally. It's really not that hard if you're willing to use the new evangelization and the media available to you. Talking about this, being educated about it yourself, and just really learning and becoming apologists. Everyone's got the opportunity right now to be a preacher. You know, of course, engaging with the organizations, I think that that's very strategic. There are people that this is their call, this is what they're doing. And I can tell you, you know, from Guiding Star, it's hard to fund something that is so countercultural, especially in the sphere of women's healthcare. When you say you work in women's healthcare, you're met with suspicion from, you know, very traditional conservatives, you know, because they assume that you're in the abortion promoting, contraceptive toting world. And when you say, no, we don't provide those things, then the other side turns on you and says, well, you're not real women's healthcare providers. And so those of us that are walking that strange line between these two worldviews, we need a lot of support, because we're nobody's sweet spot for funding. No one wants to help us. So yeah, praying for us and helping and connecting us to the correct avenues would be not a lot of money, and there's no reimbursement for not prescribing contraception.
Right.
I tell you that there's no incentive not to, do what is accepted, but we're doing it because it's the right thing to do. I'm sure you probably have some thoughts on that, just running a healthcare practice that's not necessarily the norm.
Yeah, we're definitely not the norm. Yeah, no, it's true. And even doing, and thankfully we have our religious institute to sort of support what we're doing, not so much financially, but able to support our work, which comes from our institute, from our vocation. But it's true. It's a very untraditional way, and even doing the film teaching and all of that, it's like you said, it's not financially supported, and those sorts of things. I think what's interesting is that I have found those who I am teaching who aren't coming from a Catholic perspective, even just amongst, I guess, and it's kind of neat to have a patient population that is just from the surrounding community, and in fact doesn't necessarily come here because we're a Catholic clinic. We do have patients like that, but then we also have people who just live in Alma and come here. And then a few, probably my patient population that's interested in what I'm doing are actually nurses at the hospital. And they're not Catholic, but they want to conceive and they're having trouble, and their OBGYNs don't believe in these things, but they've heard about those sisters and what they're doing over there, and that there's something interesting that they do that's non-traditional, and so they're coming here for that reason. And like you said, we're doing it because it's right, and we're trying to help them. And it doesn't. We try to find ways to if it is medical, to make it medical and fit within the medical realm as far as insurance reimbursement goes. But like you say, it's no, we're not. People aren't pounding down the doors to support us in that endeavor. So
it's unfortunate too, though, because I do think that many Catholics desire this type of option in their healthcare, but they don't realize that it's not supported by our current medical system. It's really the incentives come from doing what is standard, and what we're doing is not standard.
Definitely not. Yeah.
So I think I'm going to ask, we're at a half hour, so I'm going to ask Kelsey if you can join us back. It might be easier if we could see you. Yeah. And so you can help guide us through the Q&A, please.
Yeah, absolutely. So we had someone write in, well, we've had two, but the first one, since it was pretty early on, and I'll keep y'all's names private just because unless you give me permission, I'm not comfortable sharing that stuff. So someone did type in asking something that they read in today's lesson reminded them of something they believe was talked about earlier, and they want to confirm the church teaches that our bodies do not belong to us, and they want to know if that is true, and if anyone, and specifically maybe the deacon, can speak more for the church and expand on that a bit.
Sure, that's a great question. So I think almost always in Catholic philosophy and theology, the answer is yes and no. So, okay, ultimately speaking, nothing that I have is mine. I did nothing to earn it. I did nothing to get it for myself. Literally all that I am, all that I have, including my body, is gift. And so in that sense, properly speaking, no, my body is not mine. It is a gift that has been given to me. My soul is a gift that has been given to me. I did nothing to earn or to create those things. So now, that's not to say, though, that just because my body ultimately is not mine and I'm a steward of it, that I have no responsibility for it whatsoever. No, it is a gift, but it is a gift that has been entrusted to me. And so in that sense, if it makes sense, we can say, ultimately, no, our bodies do not belong to us, but they have been given to us. And because they have been given to us, there's an accountability that certainly is factored in. And we will answer for how we treated our bodies. Absolutely. We're called to be temples and to be good caretakers of all that is given to us. Was that basically all what the question was, Kelsey?
Yes, I think that answers it. Yeah, it seemed more of just from reading, clarifying. So I think that would, and we'll probably include it in the resources, but someone specifically asked Leah if there's a link where they could donate to what you're speaking on. So
Yes, of course.
I was like, I'll probably grab that from you guys to include.
That's like my favorite question ever.
Yeah, all right. But that
Also,
is,
you might include while you're at it. I think there are people out there that would also be interested in knowing how to donate or to support Endow as well. And there are a lot of great, amazing ministries here, but Endow is certainly one of them. So you might include information for that too.
yeah, absolutely. We definitely always include that one. And I do have someone that has their hand up. Oh, and someone said donate to the sisters too. So there you go. But Janelle, let me see if I can get you on here. Okay. Janelle, can you hear us?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
perfect.
Hi. Hi, good afternoon, everyone. This is my son butting in. But first, I would like to be thankful. I've been watching, or could say lurking, wanting to ask questions for the past week, but I just want to thank you all. It's just an inspiration. By the way, I belong to the Diocese of Charleston. I'm the new NFP coordinator. Probably have from the diocese asked questions before, but so inspired and empower us in the work that we do, how important it is, and listening to you every time. Right now is being a challenge. It's probably the right time to ask this question because I've been wanting to, because we are really challenged, even though we are in a diocese setting. So right now, probably question will lead to Deacon as far as your idea, because right now we're embarking on things that we have to do. Our diocese is embarking on one to make NFP as a requirement for marriage prep, which is very important. I probably have seen the answer in Humanae Vitae because we're about to write to our bishop and been praying about it. And I saw it in Humanae Vitae, but probably as a deacon or future priest, you'd give us an idea on that one. And also when embarking an infertility support program as well. And maybe some of the other teachers can help us with that as well. So more of not a question, but guidance and enlightenment on that part, because it's such an important thing.
That's a beautiful question. I think so. The church's responsibility in marriage prep is to do everything that she can to help the couple that is engaged in coming to the church to be the absolute best husband and father, the best married couple, the best wife and mother that this couple can possibly be. And so as I got to start working with couples this past summer, and as I'm sure I'll be working with couples in the future, one of the first things that I try to help explain to them and to help them see is that my goal is not for these meetings to be a hoop to jump through so you can get married in the church so you can do the next thing and keep running the rat race of life. This is about pursuing greatness. And I have a vested interest as a shepherd of God's people in seeing God's people flourishing, not just like making it into marriage, but flourishing in marriage. And so I think if that's the goal for marriage prep, so I think maybe my first answer is to say, okay, what's the vision for marriage prep? And then to say, okay, does NFP fit that vision? And I think it's a slam dunk yes. NFP absolutely fits that vision because it teaches so many intangibles that are crucial to marriage. I mean, everything from good communication to actually listening to each other, to putting the other before ourselves, to, I mean, all of those simple basic things that are crucial for love to be able to grow in the hearts of a couple. So I think if the question is, should we not? The answer is yes. If the question is, how do we go about doing that? my first thought is that G.K. Chesterton says that anything worth doing is worth doing poorly. So that doesn't mean go out and do it poorly, but that does mean if it's worth doing, start doing it. It doesn't have to be perfect the first time. It doesn't have to have all of the answers and everything out there. To be honest with you, I think I would be hard-pressed to name a diocese off the top of my head. I'm sure there are some out there, but I would be hard-pressed to name one off the top of my head that would not think that NFP is crucial or important. And so I think there are a lot of dioceses I could name off the top of my head that do require NFP formation for couples who are getting married in the church. Is that a good start to an answer? Feel free to ask some follow-up questions.
Oh, I'm writing my notes. just dashing all the things that I could probably put into words. Yes, that answers the question, Deacon.
Good, praise God.
Yeah, and so I'm happy if there's anything we can do to help you. We can certainly put you in touch with any of the bishops that are, currently support, making it normative and things like that. But certainly a lot of great resources and to bolster what we've been saying, the good news is that the surveys that we have from people that do take the class is they come in and they're maybe like, oh, I don't know what this is, and then they leave and they would recommend it to a friend. So that's in the 90 percentile rate. So even though it's, we put ourselves out there and people are like, oh, and just like Deacon Luke said, just trying to get through a hoop or something, we have, we and other methods have several modalities of learning, and that's great. So we're encouraged that women and men can find something that matches, their lifestyle, what their need is, what their interest is. So there's lots of opportunity, I would say, to have a great program. There's other people who have done it before you. So I'm sure they'd be happy to share what is successful.
Awesome.
I would appreciate those resources. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Janelle. Okay, so I'm going to get Karen. Let's see. Where'd it go? Okay. All right, Karen, I think you can talk now. Hopefully.
Can you hear me?
Yes, there you are.
Okay, great. So I'm a little nervous about sharing this because I don't know how to say it. And I love all the Endow studies, and I'm grateful that through this COVID, you all have continued to bring it to us. And I like the format. So thank you to all of you for partnering with Endow. It's really changed my life. I'm a little nervous. So I thought this study was really great when I brought it to our parish. And in listening to all of you, and you all are great, right? But I love the masculine genius. And Deacon Luke, you can make me cry every time you share, because I've never really had men in my life that understand what Catholicism is besides going through the motions. And so feeling good that you do something with the church. And it's one thing to try, like you said, that that if you invite men in your life to a higher calling, there's a lot in my life that think that I'm strange, that they're doing it because
I know the feeling, Karen.
Okay. And so I'm hopeful that God is planting seeds for people like you, and for even my son, who's 27 a couple years ago, actually probably 4 years ago, so he was pretty young. My daughter and I did the Discover Your Dignity studies with him, and just said, it was really so soul quenching for us. And we think that you would like it, but we don't know, we're not male. And so just let us know if that never makes sense to you. And it really helped him in preparing for marriage and becoming a father. And it's just really beautiful. So I invited men in our parish to join Endow. Anyway, so I'm hoping now I've got an invitation to help bring something to the young girls and young boys to our parish. And so I'm hoping to find a men's version, or if we can, I don't know the middle school and high school Endow program. But anyway, the bottom line is this last chapter really, I think, highlights for me the message that I try to live out and let God challenge me to order or reorder my disorder of not knowing what the church teaches. I'm a convert, so I learn from the people around me, the world, whatever. And that's why I can see even those of us in many different religions who still don't recognize Christ and God. And it's not bad, it's just our first steps, right? We're all in this journey together, and so then I'm learning how to have compassion for people. And relating to where they are. But I really like the spiritual fathers section, and this last section that really talks about the love and responsibility. And really, it's not, I don't want to minimize Humanae Vitae, and this is not a negative, but it's so much more than NFP and all these things that we're talking about. And yet that's so important. But it's about us as persons and what our personhood really is and how we relate to each other and what Christ likeness really is in that sacrifice, so that we can recognize the person of Jesus Christ in the Eucharist. And he asks us to follow him in that. And it's not easy, and you feel like you're alone, or the weird, as I said, and Deacon Luke, you said. So I guess what I'm trying to do is share kind of where I'm at and what I have relatively recently been grasping, I think, from God about this higher calling that is just so beautiful in the church. And it's what the young people are yearning for, to help them understand how to navigate life in this chaos. Does that make sense?
Those are beautiful comments, Karen. And that couple thoughts as you were sharing. One, I'm sorry to hear the struggle to find that authentic masculine leadership and voice in your world. I do think that there's an implicit lie in that you have not found that and that you've never met that. Because the greatest man that ever lived is Jesus Christ. And
Yeah.
Jesus is alive. And he encounters us every time we come to Mass. He encounters us sacramentally in his church. He meets us in the scriptures. We can't run from him. And so when you get into this mindset that, okay, there are no good men, I have never met one, I have none in my life, renounce that lie. Because Jesus has been, is, and will always be present in that. Jesus desires to use all of us to help each other become great saints. And I think that's also something that you implied, that you touched on. There are very few, if any, organizations in this world other than the Catholic Church that will look at you and say, you are capable of becoming a saint. We got a lot of organizations that will say, oh, morality 100 years ago was like really crazy, so we're going to lower the bar because basically you're an animal and you can't live anything more than your animal desires. But the church will never say that. Because the church sees us for who we are and gets us right. I think it's a very beautiful gift to give to Jesus, to embrace his invitation first and to choose him first before anything else in life. Pope Benedict XVI tells us we're not made for comfort, we're made for greatness. And I think that's something that we have to make a fundamental decision every day when we get up in the morning. Are we going to seek what the world tells us we want, or are we going to seek what the gospel tells us we're made for and that we want? In the readings of Mass on Sunday, Jesus is going to tell us that those who desire to save their life, to cling to their life, are going to lose it. And those who are willing to give their life, who are willing to lose their life for his sake and for the sake of the gospel, will find it. And there is an incredible power that has been unleashed in this time, and that's the power of his resurrection. So it might feel like we are fighting an uphill battle, but that itself is also a lie. The greatest power that the world has ever seen, the power that conquered sin and death, is with us. And so our battle is downhill, using that power in every interaction, every relationship, all that we say, all that we do. So there's no reason to like really feel uncomfortable or whatnot, because you've got the greatest power literally in the history of the world that made the world behind you. He also doesn't call us to be successful, he calls us to be faithful. And so our mantra in relationships with other people, my mantra in relationships with other people, I said, I'm going to tell you what makes saints. I'm going to tell you what I do and why I do it. I'm going to live that in addition to telling you that. But at the end of the day, it is not my job to save you. It is my job to invite you, to pray for you, to encourage you, to accompany you, to challenge you, to always be there to you. But I work for the Savior, but his job is to save. My job is to show up and to bring him. And I think that's very similar to probably maybe to where you're at. So thank you for your thoughts. Thanks for letting me word vomit some thoughts back to you. Thank you for your kind words too, Karen. God bless you. Please pray for me that I can be a good priest.
You're on a good start, that's for sure. So thank you. Yeah, it made me think about not just Jesus, right? But God. He's helped me really understand he's living. He's alive, very well alive. And that I really do have the communion with saints. That, you know, it's a lie that what we in the world, or I've come to see that it is a lie that when people die, that's it, you know. And so I've got a family, you know, helping me here on earth.
Amen. We're all in this together. Salvation's a team sport.
Yeah.
God bless you.
You too. Thanks.
Okay, we have, wait, what time? I think, do we have time for one more? I think.
Yeah, we've got plenty of time for one more. We got time for one more.
I was like, my time is blocked off, so I can't tell. So again, I'm not going to use names because it was typed in, but this, and I'm going to paraphrase a little bit because there's some sensitive stuff in here, but NFP wasn't promoted in the 70s, and I guess during that time there was controversy among the clergy. So someone was misled during that because they were told to use their conscience. Of course, you know, conscience wasn't formed because of everything, but they have a lot of anger towards the clergy because of that. So they're asking for advice on how they can get through that or to get past it. So a little bit of a deep
wow, that's a real struggle that I think a lot of good, well-meaning Catholics experience. Is that we look to our shepherds to lead us, and a lot of times, well, not a lot of times, but sometimes they're not the best at leading us. And so that's a real struggle. That is a real thing. That is a fact that there are priests in the last 20, 30, 40, 50, 2,000 years that have not lived out their ministry well, and that have not led God's people the way that they're called to lead. So one, to name the wrong that has occurred, I think is an important thing. To acknowledge this happened. It's always important to be able to name that, and then to invite Jesus into that, and to say, yeah, Jesus, I'm struggling with forgiveness. There's a lot of anger that I have, maybe even at you, that you would allow this to happen, at your priest, at Father so-and-so, at whoever it is. But to acknowledge it, to invite Jesus into it, and then to pray for the grace to forgive. We know that forgiveness is God's will. That is a slam dunk. God will never tell us his will is that we not forgive, that we hold on to grudges. And so it may be difficult, but God is always wanting to free us, to heal us, and to bring about the victory of his mercy in our lives. I think this is also an invitation to really pray for your priests, because it is as a preacher of God's people now, it is a huge temptation to get up there and to want to tell people what's easy and what they know will make you popular. But that's not about what it is. It's about helping people become saints. I think we always have to err on the side of mercy as well. And so I don't know what this lack of good teaching looked like, or what it felt like, or how it was received. But we also don't know what was going on in that priest's life and in that priest's heart, why he was the way that he was, who was that taught him and that formed him. And so that's not an excuse for him, but that is to say that we always want to make a little room for mercy in our minds and our hearts as well. We should have high expectations of the church and of her priests, but also remember that they're human beings, and they have struggles just like anybody else does. And it's a very lofty call and vocation that and responsibility that we have. To a certain degree, if this helps ease a conscience too, Jesus tells specifically the teachers of his gospel that the greatest responsibility is on us as we teach people and we form people. And he tells us, right, if we mislead a child of God, that it would be better for us that a millstone be tied around our neck and we be hurled into the sea. And so there can be a lessening of culpability for sin if our conscience was formed by someone that we trusted and they didn't form it as well maybe as they should have. So that's not a carte blanche, you're not guilty of anything, but there is a possibility in that culpability for sin is lessened if Father so-and-so said, oh yeah, you can do that, don't worry about it. But most important comment is an apology from a representative of the gospel and of the church that's not how it's supposed to be. That's not what that priest was ordained to do. I am one of his brothers, like it or not. And so I'll take it. I'll take the anger on his behalf as well. But to know that there are good priests that are out there too, and to pray for them, for their courage and their boldness.
So I'm just going to pipe into that. The forgiveness is the opposite of the cancel culture, right? We're not going to turn our backs on each other. And also that, for us as married couples, we are called upon, everybody's called upon, but we're called upon in a special way to lead other married couples. And so it's not only important for priests to recognize that and turn that over to the laity, which is a different thing than we've ever done. But they don't, sometimes I feel that when I talk to different clergy, it's such a beautiful, sensitive subject, right? It's so hard, right? But that they try to do it, but they should feel comfortable that, if we're well trained, and that's why, CCL, we have theology of the body as part, we do continuing ed, similar to Endow, keeping catechizing as you go, because we're called as part of Humanae Vitae. That's, our responsibility too. So, so we need to recognize that, and we need to, offer our priests, that our willingness to assist them in this, because that we're named in this, that we're supposed to help out. So just another perspective.
Thank you. Okay, we have one more. It's actually Simone, if I can get you on here. Okay, Simone, you should be able to talk.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, everyone. It's Simone from Endow. I deacon. I just want to thank everybody so much for this incredible webinar, so much positive feedback, so much accompaniment, and for me as well. And I just want to also especially thank Couple to Coupley, because during my reversion, I had, and I'm responding in part to Karen's call, because she said I feel like a weirdo sometimes, and I love that Luke raised his hand, because I'll just also raise my hand as well. I think that's just the Christian call, is to be the weirdo, or salt and light, which is more poetic.
This is really bad, but walking into a restaurant and counting the number of people staring is kind of a pastime and hobby of mine. Usually it's more than 5.
Well, the thing is, I mean, as we've been talking about the various ways in which the institutional church has failed us in this, and maintaining a posture of mercy, but also reality of what happened. Some weirdo, I can't even remember who it was, gave me a Couple to Couple League resources and Contraception Why Not CD of Janet Smith that Couple to Couple League published. And I listened to it once as a 23-year-old and back in the day, and was converted after listening to it. And I couldn't believe that all this amazing information had been withheld. And so I decided from there on out, I would be the weirdo that would hand random things and resources to people. And there was a sale, Couple to Come did a sale. If you buy 100 copies, you'll get them each for $1. So I bought 100 copies. Deacon, stop. And I bought 100 copies and I handed them out everywhere. And this was when I was in the secular marketing field. So I'd have a lot of Christian coworkers, and I'm just like, you know, trick or treat, here's your Contraception Why Not CD. And, you know, I had so many private meetings in my workplace of people that said, this is the truth. You know, and my Jewish friends, my Buddhist friends, they're over it. The world is over it. The secular world is over it. And we can embrace the weirdness and also know that they've been waiting for the gospel, and they've been waiting for what we have to give them. So, you know, if anybody listening is kind of hesitant or worried, you're only giving them what their hearts want and are made for. Let's do it. So I haven't had one negative conversation from those 100 CDs that I passed out over the course of 3 years. All of them were like, I'm not Catholic, or I am Catholic, but this is the truth. I can't argue with this. So thank you.
Go Simone.
Thank you.
I love her energy. She's awesome.
You know what, Simone, you touched on it, and I think maybe it's a beautiful way to end. It's just that reminder and that call that if we are not willing to embrace the weirdness, we who are friends of Jesus, we who call ourselves disciples and active members of his body, the church, if we are not willing to embrace that weirdness and to walk out into the public square will never be converted, and It will not know him. So many of the saints tell us that we are his hands and his feet in this time, that he has no hands but our hands, he has no feet but our feet. And so he invites, he doesn't force, but all of us are invited to be the weirdo.
Yes, thank you all so much, Sister Katie, Leah, Deacon, Kelsey, everybody. I'm so grateful for you. God bless you all.
Thank you, Simone.
Thank you.
Guys, I've got to run to class.
Okay. Bye,
Great to be with everyone.
Bye, Deacon Luke. It was nice.
God bless you. Please pray for me. May 29th, priesthood.
I'll
Praying
see
for
you.
Put it in the notes. So I think we're about at our time. It's 2 minutes to go. So just a final thank you to everybody. And each of us has our donation links that will be included. That's a beautiful way to help out too. You know, I mean, everybody should help. Time, talent, and treasure, they always say, right? So for us, you know, with COVID and stuff, we have a lot of infrastructure. We're trying to rewrite everything to support. So much of the online is now in demand. So, you know, so all great ministries and all worthy of support in any and every way that we can do it. So it'd be great. Okay, so I think that rounds it up. Anything else from anyone, Sister Leah?
I just think that, you know, don't let this be the end of it. If this is your first introduction to Humanae Vitae, or if you're kind of new to any of this, pick up Theology of the Body next. You know, like, there's so much to learn, so much goodness. Don't let this be the end of it.
Okay. And then I will say on a final Endow note is that next week we actually start our Letter to Women webinar, but it'll be on Thursdays. So if people want to jump in and see what Pope John Paul II has to say in addressing all the women, it is up. We use GoToWebinar, which is similar to Zoom, but not Zoom because we're starting to transition on that end. So I know the registration's up everywhere on our website, on social media, since I run all of that fun stuff. But yeah, thanks for bearing with me today to be the usually not seen face, but face today. So
You did a great job, Kelsey. Thank you for stepping in.
Wonderful job. Good job, Kelsey.
awesome. All right. Thank you all. And yeah.
Goodbye.
God bless.
Bye-bye.